Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
The Projection Booth is single-handedly the greatest film podcast you could ever listen to or could possibly want.
Top notch. 5 stars. This has quickly become one of my favorite film-related podcasts. Always interesting.
A completely unpretentious yet fully comprehensive look at films from all genres.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds! Birds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got some family here.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Happy Friday, Saturday, Sunday, one someday.
Yep.
It's Friday today? It is Friday.
No, it's Saturday.
No, today is Saturday.
Wow. Also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife Dork.
I'm definitely not getting undressed.
Yep. And Brad Gullickson, mouth Dork.
I like it here.
Me too.
It's got rabbits.
I like rabbit. And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. And welcome to the It Modcast podcast. Lost Weekend 7 special episode. Day 3.
Yay!
3.
Yeah.
3.
Because it's Saturday.
Saturday.
Today is Saturday.
Today's Saturday.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we've lost all sense of time and space. But for good reason, though. We've been in the movie theater watching movies all day and night. Today's lineup, or at least the first half, is started off with the Oscar-nominated animated feature, My Life As A Zucchini.
That's correct.
I
sir.
love how Andy starts with cartoons on Saturday because Saturday morning is the time for cartoons.
Yep.
And that's when I eat my cereal with my knife, Darren.
No inside jokes on the podcast.
Okay, so let's talk about the first film, My Life As A Zucchini.
Who should start? Who should start?
I don't know. This movie was great.
Great, yeah.
It was
Great
beautiful.
movie.
I'm going to start by saying I gave this movie 5 stars
Same.
on first watch.
Same Z.
It was profoundly moving.
Were you expecting that?
I was not expecting that. Generally, when I go like I'm sorry, Andy, but when I see G Kids, I'm just like, this is going to try too hard at something.
Yeah.
And I'm not into it. But I thought that the claymation was absolutely beautiful. I thought that the story was perfect and perfectly told. And I loved all of the characters. And I really think that this is a movie that kids should watch. And adults, but kids should watch. It's a kid's story.
It is a kid's story. If you, to hear the storyline or the synopsis, your first thought would not necessarily go to an animated feature, especially in the whimsical style of the characters.
So the film opens up, and we have our main character, Zucchini. Or I actually think the word is courgette, which is not technically a zucchini, my understanding.
It's like a little zucchini.
Yeah. But we have our main character. He's by himself. He's basically finding fun where he can while his mom drinks herself into a stupor while watching TV, and he's collecting all her beer cans and making a beer can pyramid up in the attic. What happens, though, is that beer can pyramid collapses, falls through the little trap door, angers the mom. She comes up there to, like, slap him around. He knocks the trap door down on her head. She falls to her death.
Yeah.
So that's where we begin
The
in
opening
this,
scene.
In this animated film.
But you say it's a kid's film, Lisa.
Absolutely.
And you stick by that.
I do.
Yes. Zucchini is then placed in a home for children who have no parents, whether it be because they are deceased or because they have abandoned the children or for whatever reason.
Criminals, druggies.
Yes. And so this is where the interesting different dynamics initially grabbed me, because you have the quiet ones, you have the bully
Simon, what a dick.
Yeah. And then you have the little girl who every time someone pulled up, she went outside and said, "Mommy."
Yeah, B.
Yeah. And so, but firstly, Zucchini, the first kindness that we see in the film in his life is the police officer
Raymond.
Raymond that actually is assigned to him and transports him to the home. And I really liked his interaction and his relationship and his concern and care and genuine concern and care for Zucchini. And he would, I didn't know this and I didn't expect this, but he would later become a huge part of Zucchini's life. And so he's the new kid in the place. And
you can tell immediately that this is a place built on love and trying to create a warm environment. Like, it struck me, you'd think, like, when you think of, like, orphanages and group homes in American movies, there are always these dark, dank places with
a teacher is mean to the kids.
And all of the bedding is gray or hospital-like. But
Please, sir, can I have some more?
Exactly, but this place was colorful. All of the kids had their own individual fun bedding. There was toys. The Mrs. Pompano, who ran the house, she was just referred to as Madame in the beginning. You know, she had the like stereotypical bun and glasses, but she was clearly very kind. And then also there's another woman named Rosie who is also a helper there, and she's very warm and sweet. And they have a fun teacher who does their education named Mr. Paul. And it's clearly just this like warm and inviting environment for these troubled kids.
And adults giving all of themselves to help these kids, you know, grow and sustain.
And that was one of the things that struck me is when they would take them out on these excursions, or they would have get-togethers like Halloween, the Halloween parties, or the just the gatherings, and how they would the children would genuinely be having fun. They would have the equivalent of a family gathering if they had their own their homes, and so they had. For me, you know, obviously the ideal would be that they have their perfect home life with their parents, but because of the circumstances that life has dealt them, they did, I feel, have a really adequate substitute for that in this home that, like you said, the caretakers were all giving themselves to these children and providing them love. I love...
Though they ate French fries for breakfast, which I found really weird. Just maybe a straight plate of French fries.
Maybe that's a cultural thing. Maybe they do that.
In France? That's all they eat is French fries?
French fries,
They were potato wedges, right?
I have no idea. They were fried potatoes.
Was it poutine?
No, there was no gravy. It was just straight gray fries. But there was a little bit of... adversity for Zucchini in the beginning, and there was like a little bit of a hazing from the other kids with Simon, the bully.
He reminded me of Jacinto from The Devil's Backbone.
Oh my god!
You know, where they get together and they're immediately antagonistic, but through that antagonism, they find a bond eventually. And I love that unexpected friendship. And as you were saying, you know, as the film progressed, you discovered that this orphanage is actually a huge heart.
And even with Simon's his character arc and unexpected friendship, for me, it happened a lot sooner than, you know, I mean, it happened really soon. I thought it was going to be a thing where towards the end of the story, you know, we would learn more about him and he would become a sympathetic character. But really early on, he let his guard down and opened up to Zucchini and then the rest of the group, and they became a family like really quick.
So what is it about this film, though, that, you know, Lisa steps out and says 5 stars, Darren says 5 stars, you know, Itmod in row 2 was a mess after the film. This was devastating is not the right word, because I wasn't devastated, but I was emotionally put through the ringer. I was wrecked.
Because the beauty of the film, outside of the visual, but it was the familiarity in the characters and the human nature and the empathy that we can have for these kids, and in some way, shape, or form, we saw a little bit of ourselves or our families or different aspects of our lives in this feature. For me, I related to the children who were abandoned, or, you know, who had these extreme circumstances thrust upon them in their life early on, with no say in the matter, and you know, having a huge part of their innocence affected in a very tremendous way. Like I responded to that, and it was it came not even at a time when that was something on screen being shown. It was they had the dance party when everyone was dancing, that cute scene, and then there was a scene after that. Well, when they cut from the dance party scene to the scene after that, I just thought it was a generalization. Just thought about the kids in those situations and how, you know, they were just born. They were born into the circumstance that was going to happen when they turned however age, when the parents were druggies or they abandoned them or they got a divorce. And I related to that, and it caused me to look back on my life and my situation and draw a parallel to that. And knowing how I felt when I was a child and how I feel as an adult as it being affected, I immediately could just feel like with those kids and understand what they might be going through. So it made me be able to empathize with them and connect with them just like that, like instantaneously.
We connect to the reality of these, you know, stop motion figurines.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
an incredibly powerful experience. The art of that. Also, the efficiency of this film. You know, it's only an hour and 6 minutes, and it, you know, you are pulled in really, really quickly.
I think it's because they don't shy away from the real stuff. The reasons kids are in foster care or similar situations is because their parents were addicts, or their parents were criminals, or their parents made some kind of rash decision. There was even a character named Alice who had this very clear angst and anxiety, and they implied in child appropriate language that she had a guardian who was molesting her, and she was dealing with that. And I just think about...
Well, she has this scar, this cross that's been cut into her face.
Yeah. Simon also had a scar. Like these children were clearly physically abused as well as emotionally abused. And I just think about, you know, the adults like Darren or like Brian who, you know, lost parents as children. Or I think about kids today who watch these movies and do not see kids that look like them.
So what I want to talk about, though, is I want to go back to after the film. We're talking with our fellow Lost Weekenders, and there was a lot of conversation with everybody. Everybody really liked the movie, but there was some debate as to whether this is appropriate for children. And could you recommend this to a kid, you know, 9 years old to watch it?
Yes, because...
And I agree with you, but why is that?
Like I had my emotional reaction that I had today at that random moment because as a child, I had no frame of reference as far as processing my circumstance and what had happened to me and what would continue to be something that I would deal with for the rest of my life. There was no special, there was no talk. I didn't talk about it to my dad or my family. It just was, and that's just how I just lived my life in that way. And then as an adult, being more mature and being able to psychoanalyze and look inward and go talk to a psychiatrist, then I can look at those things and deal with it. But as a kid, like I had nothing to guide me through that as far as my feelings and looking at my feelings and saying, this is the reality of it. It's okay to feel the way you feel, and you can still try to find a way to be happy and live life. You have other friends, you have family. And so as a kid, if I had seen this, those things that I would compartmentalize and just not deal with because I didn't know how to process it, I would have been, in a way, forced to look at those. I would have made a connection, and I would have been able to think about it in a way that, for me, I believe would have been healthy. And, you know, I don't know, it would have just fostered that, you know, me looking at it and processing it early on in an understandable way. Because like you said, the language that was used in the film was kid friendly, and so that if a child was watching it, they were using terms and in situations that they could understand and relate to.
This was G-rated material, but reality as well.
Yeah.
I think we don't give kids enough credit in this country. You know, we feed our children Disney, Pixar, a singular style of animation, a singular style of storytelling. And, for me growing up, I enjoyed all that stuff, certainly. But when I was not being fed what I thought was honest entertainment, I found it elsewhere. As a 10-year-old, I was going out and seeing and reading mature content because I needed to hear the reality of art from other voices besides my parents.
Yeah. I mean, I think it deals with real issues without stepping past the boundaries of what's accessible to kids. So you're able to talk about these type of real issues, and I just don't think it.
Well, it's just the fact of the matter is that being a child does not spare you from grief.
No.
There are children out there dealing with real grief, and also there are children who are like me, super lucky and leading this charmed life, and it's important to see these stories and empathize with people who have a life experience that is completely different than yours.
Yep.
It's important as an adult, but it's equally important as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think this film had such an effect on this audience. You go to Letterboxd right now and you look at everyone's scores that was sitting in this theater, at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, and this film had the most consistent, high-ranking letterbox viewing here in this room. And at the same time, I think the people who were like, oh, I don't know if I could recommend this, it's because they have not grown up with this style of children's entertainment. But we need to give our kids credit. Yeah. And we need to talk to them like human beings.
I also think that people forget what it's like to be a child.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of work with kids and being amongst children. I've watched them process the world, and they can do it. They're doing it in their own way, but they can do it.
And so the last thing I would say is, this was an Academy Award nominated animated film.
Man.
It was there next to The Red Turtle, which I still haven't seen, Zootopia, Moana, and Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yeah.
And as much as I loved Moana and Zootopia, and I think both of those films are talking at a higher level also compared to a lot of recent animated films, My Life as a Zucchini is certainly my favorite of the bunch.
It's vital. It's vital.
I think so. Thumbs up all around. Itmod, seal of approval, stamp of approval for My Life as a Zucchini. The next feature was the documentary, Kedi. About the cat situation in Istanbul.
Is it a situation? Yes, I guess it's a situation, but it's also it's just like a culture. It's cat culture.
Yeah, talk about the cat culture, Lisa. Man.
So in Istanbul, they went a little bit into the history, but it was a maritime place, and so during that time, boats would come in and they would have cats on board to take care of rats and things like that. And when they would arrive in Istanbul, the cats would get off of the boat. And so Istanbul is essentially just living amongst this crazy rainbow variety of cats. And they've created, and there's this culture surrounding the cats where people just kind of live amongst them. It's just two species side by side existing.
They're part of the populace. It really, that's crazy. It's amazing. How
and some people would call it an infestation, but this documentary at least takes the point of view that the people of Istanbul have a symbiotic relationship with the cats. I wonder, though, if there is another side to this story, that if there is another documentarian who would take this story and tell it the exact same way. Right. Oh, I was explaining to Darren toxoplasmosis, which is a neurological disorder of sorts caused by contact with cat feces.
Yeah.
And it's got to be everywhere, right?
So maybe absolutely. And I was just like, as I was watching this, I'm like, oh, cute kitties. Like, where do all the dead cats go? That place is littered with dead cats.
So Kedi is a really adorable documentary that anthropomorphizes these cats into life stories and gives them husbands and children to protect and friendships to fight over. It's not quite to the level of Emily Sears referred to it as not quite Meerkat Manor, but we're reaching a fictionalization with the personalities of these cats.
Yeah.
For the benefit of entertainment.
Yeah.
But I think that the difference between like Meerkat Manor and Kedi is Meerkat Manor was trying to create a narrative, like and infuse a narrative onto these meerkats, where I think that Kedi is really trying to speak the truth of these cats and really reflect their real lives. And I know that, cats exist because they have evolved to live amongst us, and our ability to empathize with them and love them is part of what allows them to survive amongst us. Yeah. But at the same time, when you see these cats exist in this way, in this like Brad said, symbiotic relationship, where in the United States, really, it's a very I think it's symbiotic relationship versus in the United States, it's very domesticated, where we invite the cats into our home, where I don't know. Yeah, I can't even.
I think there's another story on the other side of this documentary.
Well, I want to bring up a point that you made, Lisa, that was really good. Like in our society, we go to the kennel or to wherever, and we choose a cat that we want. We bring it home and we domesticate it. And all right, this is your new spot. Take it or leave it, but you're going to be here from now on. Whereas in Istanbul, specifically for the ones who are featured in the documentary, those cats choose who they want to spend their time around, and they're allowed to come and go freely. They're allowed a primal freedom.
Well, we also see, though, in the documentary that there are domesticated cats, right? So there are families that have gone, collected them, domesticated them, and boxed them in their apartments. But then what this documentary, though, mainly focuses on is on the Animal Planet-like adventures of the kitties.
But that's because these kitties, they are wild animals. Like the cats that we see, it's weird for me to see cats with these engorged nipples or these testicles. Like the cats that we see are asexual love machines or austerity machines depending on your cat. But these cats are sexual beings. They have will. They have personality that is separate almost completely from human beings.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. By the end of this film, you're like, I've had enough of cats.
Oh my God. It's about 45 minutes too fucking long. I think that they throw out their thesis statement that people's lives are enriched by living amongst another species. By living amongst another species, you see a reflection of yourself, and it makes you a more empathetic culture. They throw out that thesis statement right in the beginning, and then you're like, I got it, and then you go why is this still going on?
Why are they still introducing cats?
Yeah. But all in all, I think it was a fairly entertaining documentary. And then following that, we was Toni Erdman?
Yeah.
Wow, Toni Erdman. Which, if I'm not mistaken, played a lot better the second time for you too?
Yeah, it was a second watch for me and Brad, and you as
Myself,
well, Darren.
Yeah.
But this is Brian's first watch, so I'm really interested in what he thinks.
I spent half the time watching our row react to Toni Erdman, and Brian was the second show that I was experiencing.
It was interesting. I really enjoyed the film. I guess the synopsis I'll read from here: a practical joking father tries to reconnect with his hard-working daughter by creating an outrageous alter ego and posing as her CEO's life coach. Okay. Yeah, 'cause I think I missed that last part. I don't think I really got the whole thing. I mean, I knew he was a life coach, but I didn't know it was the life coach of her CEO. But basically, he just kind of enters her life and really does a lot of very embarrassing and humiliating things to her. But I think in a lot of ways, as the movie progresses, she starts to come to the realization that her father is really freeing her from her own prison, I guess, that she's in herself. At least that's what I took from it. This idea that she's attained a certain amount of success in her life, but she's not really happy. And there's a conversation that her father had when they were on the rooftop about her not, being on her phone, which is not really on her phone, basically creating this facade, this falsehood about her life. And a lot of things that happen. That's why those moments in the movie with the Whitney Houston song and the naked party, I think that was her really shedding, like especially with the party, like shedding her clothes, shedding herself of this falsehood and really freeing herself to really find comfort and happiness in her own life. And I think her father really helped her with that. I thought it was just a great father-daughter story. I thought it was really, really good.
Lisa, your second go around, was there things that you picked up that had not necessarily stood out to you the first time?
Well, the first time I watched it, I just kind of let it wash over me and kind of came to the conclusions as I was kind of pondering the film.
Yeah.
And the second time, as I was watching, I went in knowing or having my own conception of, okay, this is a story about humiliation and how humiliation can be used as a tool of love, like the father uses it, as a tool to disarm, as a tool to create vulnerability on the spot, or to hurt people, like the daughter uses it. And so the second time around, I could watch that cycle of humiliation more completely, and I found myself pulling more of that story. I also this time caught more of the theme of mortality. So in the beginning of the film, it's set up that Winifred, who is the dad in the story, is wearing a heart monitor. He has this aged dog named Willie who is like just so old and just
barely breathing.
Yeah. And he also has this elderly mother and just everything. And he's moving very slow and belabored. And, he's really just facing his own mortality. And then when Ines, the daughter, has an opportunity to pause, there is, I think, a moment that I didn't understand before, where I think that she is grasping at her father's mortality for the first time and trying to understand what that would mean in her life after dealing with this humiliating dad. Like, what happens, like, when I'm spared the embarrassment of this.
What about you, Brad? Anything that stood out the second go round that you didn't necessarily pick up on the first time? Or
for me, it was just anticipating a bunch of different scenes,
right?
And the crowd's reaction. The difference between The Lost Weekend and when we saw it at Cinema Arts is that when we saw it then, we had like 6 elderly individuals in that theater with us. Here we have a sold-out show. So when she breaks into, Children Are the Future, and she embraces that song, she falls back into what I guess is the routine that they had when they were much younger, that her dad would make her do this. And so she falls right into that song, and she belts it out, and she owns it. And when that song ended, when that performance ends, and she just shuts it off like a switch and walks out the room, the crowd in here erupted into applause because it was such an epic moment of performance.
That happened both times. Everyone responds to the same beats in the way that I respond to it, in the way that I enjoyed it, and it happened again this time. I was curious to see if people were going to, because this is a German film, right?
Correct.
And as we talked about on the podcast, there are some films at the festival where, being that they are based and steeped in different cultures, we may lose some things in translation because of our cultural differences, like The Salesman, and so watching. In comedy in general, it can be comedy born from our country, our comedians that we know, and we still might not get it because comedy really is super subjective to different senses of humor. And so that, coupled with the fact that this was a German film, I was always worried or concerned or curious as to see how the humor would be recepted
Well, and this is a very specific style of humor.
Yes.
It's the humor born from awkward human interaction.
Yeah.
And it's painful. It's painfully funny. But boy, is it a great second watch.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a crowd filled with mostly first-time watchers, because there's this little bit of like, I was there, so I understand the belly laughs, the gut hurt you're experiencing.
Yeah.
When they get to that final birthday party, to me, on the second watch, the way they set that up, where she's putting the dress on and she uses the fork to zip it up, you realize like what a constriction that dress is, just so that when the doorbell rings as she's in mid-change, you understand why she just says, well, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to, I can't, I'm done. My life's crap anyway, and I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to do what my dad would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the Whitney Houston moment because if you listen to, that's the first time I actually listened to the lyrics of the song, and you see like how it really correlates with her own life. And even though it's a great crowd pleasing moment and an emotional, funny moment, it's extremely emotional too.
Dude, so I want to take us on a tangent here real quick. So that song on November 9th,
right,
the day after the election, Lisa and I walk into Silver Diner.
And I've been crying all morning.
Yeah, we were really miserable. We were frankly devastated. And that song comes on the Silver Diner jukebox. You know how each jukebox is at your table? And Lisa just loses it. Niagara Falls, pours down tears. And there's this businessman duo sitting in the booth behind us. And they stand up after the song finishes. And they point to Lisa. And they say, like, did you put that song on? And Lisa said, no, but it's pretty damn perfect right now. And they just left.
Huh.
And I don't know. I hear that song now, and I can't not think about that Silver Diner moment of just American tragedy.
Oh, my God.
Crazy.
And it has not stopped.
Yeah. Well, so, yeah, I'm glad that the Lost Weekend audience responded positively to Toni Erdman.
And I'm glad that I responded more positively than the first time, because I bumped it up a half a star. The first time I watched it, I said 3.5 stars. Like, I really liked it. But this time, I mean, the explosion of applause and laughter when Gerald shows up at the party.
Oh, man.
I'm just like,
when he comes back.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh,
so good.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I suggest, if you haven't seen this film, that you should watch it. But you should watch it first with friends, and then you should watch it again with a second set of friends.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to make more friends.
It's a crowd movie.
It is.
Yeah.
And so our next feature was Anna Lily Amirpour's follow-up to The Girl Who Walks Home Alone at Night. This was The Bad Batch. And this film stars, I know her last name is Stackhouse. I kind of want to say Sookie Stackhouse.
It's Suki Waterhouse.
Suki Waterhouse. I think of True Blood when I hear her name. And Jason Momoa, Keanu Reeves has a big part in it. Giovanni Ribisi's in there strolling around. And Jim Carrey is
Diego Luna as
Diego
the
Luna's
DJ.
the DJ, yeah. So it's a pretty eclectic cast. So what are your thoughts about The Bad Batch, Brad?
I mean, anytime an apocalypse film comes out, I'm anticipating it desperately, because I've loved this genre ever since Mad Max, the original films, A Boy and His Dog with Don Johnson.
Yeah.
Those are some of my all-time favorite movies. And, I thought A Girl Who Walked Home Alone at Night was an incredibly stylish, beautiful, great soundtrack of a movie.
Man. Yep.
And so, The Bad Batch had a lot to live up to. And it's also coming from Neon, the new Draft House distribution arm that also is bringing us Colossal. So I'm expecting a real powerhouse punch. the truth is, the movie opens up and Suki Waterhouse is deported from America. It kind of reminds me like Escape from New York or Escape from L.A., where the Bad Batch are the unwanted. We don't want you in our country anymore. We declare you illegal, and we put you on the other side of this fence. And on the other side of this fence, you learn pretty quickly, it's a hellscape. Jason Momoa's bridge people are cannibals. They kidnap her. Within 5 minutes, they saw off her arm and her leg, and boom.
What'd you think about that moment?
I mean,
pretty shocking, right?
It's shocking. It's ugly. It's gross. I don't want to be here. But at the same time, that's what I want out of an apocalypse. And, you know, as she wanders eventually out of the bridge people's domain, she encounters the land of Comfort City, and that's where Keanu Reeves rules. And he's wearing like this get-up that reminds me of like Tony Clifton, the Lloyd Kaufman character from back in the talk about awkward humor. Tony Clifton and Toni Erdman are one and the same. And Keanu Reeves just has this crazy get-up. He's obviously a David Koresh maniac. He's got these pregnant women surrounding him with Uzis.
Yeah.
And Jason Momoa is this, he has this big tattoo across his chest that says Miami Man. He's got this crazy Cuban accent. He's terrifying. But when his daughter goes missing, you start to see him as a father, and seeing him as a father is also really uncomfortable to experience as well. And,
He's my favorite thing about the film on the second watch.
I agree 100%. And how Suki Waterhouse and Jason Momoa become linked I'm still processing it, right? Because I don't know if I necessarily understand every decision or thought process of these characters, but whatever got them to their climax, I appreciate. And I'm not going to give away where these characters end up, but it is so in line with what I want from a post-apocalyptic story. It has the morality of its landscape. This is Lord Humongous. This is people, right? This is how you get there. This is how they live. And, you don't become the Bad Batch without having, there's a lot of conversation to be had there. We were joking before the podcast when she's put behind that wall. I was like, that's not set in the far future. That's set in 8 years from now. The wall has been erected. And Donald Trump's leading from the White House in his third term. And that's how we get to the Bad Batch. And, it's a really graphic, uncomfortable, slow-paced, or at least measured paced film, and it's not for everybody. No, but that's what I want out of my genre.
Yeah.
What about you?
I probably I don't want to say I didn't like it as much, but I enjoyed it. Again, it's a movie. Processing is a theme this weekend. But I did really like Jason Momoa's character. I think I didn't know how I was going to respond to him in the beginning, seeing establishing who his character was. But even knowing that he was these bridge people and they were cannibals eating people, and then we see what happens to Suki's character in the beginning, you knew that he was part of a bad clan.
There is a smash cut after Jason Momoa breaks a woman's neck to the tune of Wham.
Yeah.
A smash cut into a butchering of a human being that is awful.
Yeah. But it's weird because there's a duality to his character that I really enjoy, because there is a sweetness or a kindness that you see when he's with his daughter, because in that same moment before
Boy George,
he goes,
it wasn't Wham, was it?
No, it was Karma Chameleon. Boy George.
Oof, sorry.
Culture Club.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
It's okay.
But he's drawing a portrait of his daughter. And as he does that, he goes outside, puts his Walkman on, and then you see him snap someone's neck. And it's just like, so in that moment, we get to see his heart that he has with his daughter. And right after that, the brutality that he also shows as well. But as the movie progresses, you really start to connect with him because of that relationship that they established in that moment with the picture. Towards the end, I start to kind of root for him.
Well, it's a maniac story, right? Every character in there has to sink to survive. And if you're living below the wall, I mean, you are not going to last long as a saint. You're going to have your arm cut off in 5 minutes, and if you're lucky, you live 5 months later.
And you even see that on the other side of it, at the comfort place, wherever it's called. Those people are the same way. That's not really a safe haven either.
No.
So
yeah, I mean, this is The Walking Dead. This is Why the Last Man. This is Fury Road. And it has a really great hip soundtrack.
It does have a really
you would
good
expect
soundtrack
from this director.
It is a really good soundtrack. Yeah.
I'm weirdly quiet because I thought it was going to be vomity,
Yeah.
so I left. But I can't. But I hear it's VF, so I will watch it at a later date.
I'll be curious, Lisa, to see if you actually like this movie or not.
If I can, because I love Girl Who Walks Home Alone at Night. I love movies that have amazing soundtracks and make that a priority.
I mean, like we were talking about with Colossal and Time Crimes and Extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Those are all Nacho Villagrande movies, but they are not necessarily the same movie. This is the same deal, right? I mean, this is not like A Girl Walks Home Alone at
And
Night.
I could tell that from the 15 minutes that I watched. But the thing is, Darren told me that she may vomit after she wakes up and has her leg cut off, and like the first 15 minutes is her waking up after she's had her leg cut off, so I just got way too flinchy.
I'm
So I dropped my book loudly, and I was like, I guess I'll go.
But I'm with The Bad Batch, and then obviously A Girl Who Walks Home Alone at Night. I'm curious and looking forward to anything that this director does, because like you just said, Brad, she does have a distinctive voice, and that is a gem in Hollywood, in filmmaking, period. And so I really appreciate that.
I would like to have a longer conversation about this movie because my immersion into the film was a slow one. And honestly, I didn't really like the movie until the final scene. And when that final scene happens, and actually when a particular reaction shot happens, I was like, oh no, I kind of love this film, it turns out. And now I want to watch it again immediately.
Good, and you can watch it with me, and I won't flinch.
We're doing it.
Lisa's going to take a copious amount of notes, so then we will have a larger discussion.
That's right. I did take some notes for this movie for
the first 15 minutes.
And
it was like, oh my god, why?
Yeah. No.
Something that Keanu
I
Reeves...
wrote down that there was some Ace of Base in the
there was
soundtrack.
Ace of Base, yep. There's something that Keanu Reeves mentions in the film that what you said about not feeling a certain way about the film until that final moment. And you said earlier, you're not necessarily sure about the decisions that characters were making, but as long as it led to that moment, then you were cool with it. Well, that goes to what Keanu Reeves was saying, as far as like everything that has happened to you has led to you being on this couch right now, you being here right now. And that philosophy mirrors the film, in that all this crazy shit that happens led up to that moment around that fire, eating Bugs Bunny, much to the disdain of the little girl. So sad.
It's interesting though, Keanu. I want to talk about Keanu Reeves for a second. I don't think a lot of people
retired John Wick.
Yeah, I don't think people give him enough credit. People are so instantly call him, one note. His tone is just simply one tone. But the dude takes chances.
Dude, his character here is hanging out with the Duke from Escape from New York. Like that's the world he's living in. That's the style of performance that's happening.
Yeah.
But I like some of the choices that he's making later in his career. I mean, even with the Neon Demon and with this film here, it's like he's taking chances, and I don't think people give him enough credit. Yeah, I mean, he may not have the widest range, just like a De Niro or a Christian Bale or anybody, but the guy
from a long time
ago. Yeah. But the guy takes chances, and I like seeing him pop up in like smaller films and trying to do like these weird characters. So I think that's kind of cool.
Speaking of which, who pops up in this film and has a weird character but is amazing in it? Jim Carrey, and it just made me miss him so much. He is such a great character actor. Doesn't utter a word of dialogue in the film. It's just a total physical but yet expressive performance, and it just made me miss him. Jim Carrey. So that was the last film of the first half of day 3.
Can we talk trailers really quick?
Yep, do it.
So the trailer for Life as a Zucchini was actually the trailer for the store Tin Top Art, which was the sponsor for that film.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to go to that fucking store. It looks amazing.
Yeah, the wood
wood
printing.
carving things.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know. I want to work for them. Okay. Then the trailer for Kedi was that Studio Ghibli turtle movie. I did not write
the red turtle.
The red turtle. And Brad goes, you know what this movie is about? Sex with the turtle. And I was like, oh no. And I had this epiphany that I was like, oh my God, this is Swiss Army Man, but instead of a corpse, it's a turtle.
No.
And he fucks it.
But I think the turtle turned into a lady, right?
Did it though?
Boy, that was in his mind.
Did it?
No.
Yeah, I know.
Ew.
Doesn't that?
Oh,
Think about it. Isn't that? Don't they carry salmonella? I'm just saying.
I don't know. I still want to check it out.
Me too.
And then the trailer for Toni Erdman was a documentary called God Knows Where I Am.
Oh man,
sadness.
That looks terrifying.
Yeah, that one looked pretty disturbing.
Like a kind of a true crime documentary about this woman's death, and she was apparently in and they don't know if it was like a suicide or a murder, but there was definitely some kind of like crazy mind abuse and physical abuse that was going on. That looks fucking sad.
Yeah.
And then the trailer for Bad Batch was Baby Driver.
Yep.
Can't wait.
Getting excited for that movie.
Yep. So that's the first half. The next half we got.
Daniel Blake is the next film.
Which trailer?
Ken Loach.
Which movie was that? Is that a documentary?
No. It's the Sad Englishman.
Oh, another one of those. We generally like those.
It's I don't know anything about it other than it's a Ken Loach movie. It's set in England. It's gonna be interesting. It's got a lot of buzz, a lot of good reviews from last year. It showed up on a bunch of people's top 10 lists.
I remember the trailer for that.
And then after that is our film that we're sponsoring, Women Who Kill.
Yep.
And then after that, Johnny Toes 3.
Yep.
And
Excited
then
to see that one.
Our midnight movie is The Lure Mermaids.
Oh yeah, that one played at Fantastic Fest as well. Didn't get a chance to see that one though. I'm curious to see what you think, Lisa. I think that one's a musical.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think that one's a musical.
All my favorite mermaid movies are musicals. The Little Mermaid.
Yeah. Well, it has to have some type of singing in it because they're luring
Splash
people
the
to
musical.
their death. These are like killer mermaids though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sirens.
Yep. Sidewalk Sirens. Yay!
What?
So
at Sidewalk Sirens.
at
Follow
Sidewalk
me.
Siren.
You'll see nothing about Lost Weekend. I haven't tweeted one time.
Yep. So we will be back with the second half of day 3 of Lost Weekend. For all things Lost Weekend 7, stay tuned to the ItModcast Twitter page at ItModcast, also on Instagram at ItModcast, and Facebook at ItModcast. We should have some more videos up and mini reviews coming shortly. That's going to do it for us. Stay tuned, and until next time.